So here's the next page right here. And okay, so we get a lot of interesting imagery right here, or more aspects of her being precocious. She's sitting in school, and she's basically like, "Why do I have to be here?" And she says specifically, "I can read and write, and there are some people in this town who have every reason to know that I can count money." And basically, she's so like ahead of she's like breaking the boundaries of a child, and like everyone's not taking it too kindly. They even say like there's people in the town that think that she ought to be whipped, and she just like represents something like the town isn't like good with. Like she is the devil at this point. Like people perceive her as the devil, and she says right here when she's talking to Billy Bob, deep down they think I'm absolutely wonderful. So it's like she can see through people. Like there's more of that aspect of her, just her having that power to see through people. And at this point, I'm like, she's the devil, but does she also represent? Once again, I was thinking like maybe the future. Like when I think of her, like I wouldn't think kids back then would be like her, but I think of today, like in modern times, and I could totally see people that are like super smart and like she's outgrowing all these institutions. I feel, and like people back then are, like aren't ready for it, and maybe that's why they hate her so much. So that was just my thought. Um, let's see, and then we get then this guy comes to town, and basically they're talking about like pretty much like a show, like a talent show coming up. Let's see, um, and how he's like promising all these people. This guy's like a con artist. Basically, he's promising all these people that they're gonna get jobs if they just like on fruit ships if they pay him this money, and they get pretty disappointed in the end. And then we get this show, and this talent show is really interesting. It's like at least her act is, and the boys aren't clapping for anybody else but her. But and all the people are like, wow, they're under a spell. But she's basically like dancing and stuff, and she ends up doing all these unladylike things. Like at one instance, she's like she upended her skirt to display her blue lace underwear. Like that's definitely breaking a gender role and like going above people's comfort zones, and like basically she just represents everything that these people don't stand for. And it says right here, this she started singing the Star Spangled Banner, so everybody had to stand up and like out of respect, and like and she gets this blue like spirit sparkler looking thing that's like red, white, and blue, like to like while she's on stage and stuff, and she just represents like I don't know, like I think she represents like the new shift in America, or like a new shift of ideals. And by the end of the story, like she gets everybody on her side, which I thought was really interesting. Um, let's see. I thought this line was interesting right here. A good deed is something you do because you want something in return. So I was just thinking about that and like how it applied to this story, and I was thinking to myself, is that true? So there's that, and then there's let's see. She's a very business minded person. She was making a proposition to everybody, and here I got this in quotes. The proposition was that they would pool their money and finance her trip to Hollywood, and in return they'd get 10% of her life earnings. Like this kid is thinking outside of the box, and it's very ahead of her time. Um, get some more similes here. Stiff as a bell tongue. Um, let's see. She was afraid to show anyone else. Okay, that was an interesting line. When she says she was the things he was afraid to show anyone else. And basically, when they were talking about that, I was thinking back to like, what does she represent? Like the devil desires, like desires are things that we that we're afraid to show people, or like something that's like deep in you that you don't really tell people. Like I feel like she represents that, and that's maybe why people don't take too kindly to her, because like they can't embrace things that they don't like to share. Um, let's see. Billy Bob knew he would never happen that way, and so when music came through the dark, would stuff a pillow over his head. Um, so we get more. Okay, so Billy Bob is being the realist here. It says Billy Bob knew it would never happen that way, and so when the music came through the dark, he would stuff the pillow over his head. made me think of the Hellenism versus Hebraism that we had the discussion on this week. It just reinforces the fact that she's the big dreamer and he's the realist. So you get that contrast right there. Um, oh, and then okay, then you get this like shift. Like everyone loves her now. Even like in the story, like Billy Bob was stealing from the rose garden to give to her, and like he got like punished for that. But now, as she's like leaving and stuff, um, his Aunt Elle told him like, "Oh, you can pick flowers for her." Oh yeah. So it's like that shift in perception. Like she's being like finally accepted. You also get that red to white imagery right here when she puts on the dress and she's wearing the dress. So like she's no longer perceived as the devil. So I would say she's perceived as like saintly. Um, let's see. Is that it? Okay. And then on the last page here, really interesting. Very last page is when she dies, and she's in white and she's running towards. We get some similes right here. Their faces were covered by the flowers, so they were like moons. They were like moons, and she called out, and another simile here called out, "Our voices like lightning in the rain." But Miss Bibbit, running toward those moons and roses, did not see to hear that this is when the 6 o'clock bus ran her over. And I connected that back to the beginning. She arrived on the 6 o'clock bus and she died on the 6 o'clock bus, so I knew that had some meaning. And I mean, that's about it. I'm still trying to decipher the meaning, but those were the biggest points of the story. And yeah,